What kind of misconceptions or what kind of mistakes do we make as an industry when we think about transformation? How do you advise carriers on go-to-market strategies, and what things should they be thinking about as they do product deployments and new technology deployments? How are you advising your clients to think about AI strategically?
Welcome to 5 Minutes, your fast track to smarter insurance technology and stronger leadership. In the next 5 minutes, we're going to show you a better way to lead, scale, and innovate without the chaos. Let's get into it.
Meredith, thanks so much for joining me here. Episode here of 5 Minutes. We're at Insurtech Harvard Symposium 2025. Yeah. How's the conference been going for you so far?
Fantastic. I just love this community that Stacy's created for us.
It is fantastic indeed. There's a question, Meredith, that I ask every guest because there's typically a fascinating story behind it. How did you get into insurance?
I'm the one person who raises their hand and says, nobody chose a career in insurance. I did.
Oh my gosh.
I worked at a retail agency when I was in college.
Right.
And I loved the right brain, left brain aspect of it because every scenario was unique. Mm-hmm. You had to think, you had to analyze, and then you got to help someone.
Got it.
And I was like, well, this is kind of cool. And I was a psychology major, so I didn't intend to become a psychologist.
Right.
I intended to go to college to grow up. And so I sought interviews and got an interview with Liberty Mutual during my senior year in college. And so I knew where I was going before I graduated. So I started a week after graduation.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so you started at a carrier
Yep.
and you kind of worked around the different areas of the value chain.
Yep.
And now talk to me about where you've ended up some years later.
Yeah, so I spent 33 years at Liberty Mutual.
Okay.
And then I went and worked across the entire insurance life cycle. Started off in claims and wound up on the business side of technology for the entire commercial market footprint.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it, loss prevention, managed care, call center, because I just kept saying yes.
Right.
Because they quickly realized I liked doing things I'd never done before.
Mm-hmm.
Go figure. And so when I left Liberty, I said in the spirit of, what have I not done before? Oh, let's go to an AI startup.
Nice.
And that's what I did. So
Okay.
I was the go-to-market strategist in an AI startup that was coming into the insurance industry and literally had no one in the company with any insurance background.
Mm-hmm.
And so I trained the whole organization on insurance, the industry, the personas, the processes, et cetera, guided the product design, development, marketing, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then also the whole sales of, what's the messaging and sitting
Right.
in on the calls and what's our value proposition. And it was amazing to be part of a company that went through hypergrowth in 2.5 years from 60 people to 200.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah,
That's
it was
awesome.
wild. And then after that, I said, again, what's the next thing I haven't done before? That also furthers my end state goal of all of where I want to be when I grow up, if I ever grow up. And that was really, I wanted to really kind of earn the badge of advisor.
Okay.
I mean, I've been doing advisory for almost my entire career at Liberty Mutual, but it was internal advisory.
Right,
And so
right.
it doesn't really understandably count in most people's eyes. It's very
Sure.
different when you're doing it with kind of external clients. And so, having the opportunity to join Resource Pro and under the amazing tutelage of someone like Mark Brading, to really understand all that, as well as how research gets done.
Right.
And what goes into it, because I've always loved the reports. I had no idea how
fascinating.
much work goes into it.
For sure.
But also how much learning it facilitates too.
No, 100%. That makes a lot of sense. So Meredith, you described this really intriguing career where you've been on the carrier side, you've been on the Insurtech side, and ostensibly always in service of looking for that transformation opportunity.
Yep.
So throughout that journey, what can you share with us, whether on either side of the fence, it doesn't matter, what kind of misconceptions or what kind of mistakes do we make as an industry when we think about transformation, and how do we do that better?
Yeah, I think, and sometimes I don't like the word transformation because I think it's overly used.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like we just need to change.
Yeah.
And we've been changing forever and we're going to keep changing, just now we're changing at a faster pace.
Yeah.
I think people think about it as transformation as one big bang, which in the way back days of it all, it was. I think we make the mistake to think transformation is just about technology. It's about people and process first.
Interesting.
An
Yeah,
insurance
yeah.
product.
Yeah.
And then technology is the tail of the dog. It's the enabler of it all. And so I think, it's the Maslow's hammer problem. You're running around looking for the darn nail of, I must use Gen AI. Let me go find something to use Gen AI for. And the bigger, the better.
Sure.
And I think that's where nowadays there's too many opportunities to go as small as you dare to test and learn a theory, a premise. And if you're onto something, then what's the next step and what's the next step? And through that, you truly achieve what Agile's trying to incorporate is those 2 to 3 year timelines were always fiction, as someone wisely said to me a few years ago, CIO. And so let's stop writing fiction. Let's start building plans that don't anticipate that the world is changing every minute. And your new number one priority is 5 minutes from somebody's inbox.
Right.
So stop stacking the deck with but we didn't plan for that. And I'm like, no, we didn't plan for that. We didn't plan for 9/11.
Right.
And now we have the Terrorism Risk Insurance Act, and it's about to expire, and we don't know if the government's going to renew it, and we need to be poised and ready to act to remain compliant and transparent and prepare our clients to understand that we're about to remove that coverage, because if we have another attack, we'll go under.
Right.
No, we didn't plan for that, but what do
Right.
you think my option is? To not do it? We have to do it.
That's right.
So I banned the word unplanned from my team's vocabulary.
I love that. That's awesome. You mentioned earlier that you've worked to help companies with their go-to-market strategy.
Yeah.
I was actually just moderating a panel where we were musing over the fact that the adoption of things like IoT has been miserable for the past 20 years, and I'm sure there's lots of other examples we can come up with. How do you approach, and perhaps from your perch as an advisor, how do you advise carriers on go-to-market strategies, and what things should they be thinking about as they do new product deployments and new technology deployments?
Again, I'm always going to come back to my bias. It's all about people. And so it's really essential to really embrace change management. I'm a huge fan of the Prosky ADKAR method, which begins with awareness.
Yes.
And so it's not about saying nothing until you know everything. It's your organization, your people need to be one step behind you all along the way, and understanding the why. Why are we doing this? Because if you don't say so, they will assume the worst. And what we see now, research is the vast reason why we hear that organizations are looking to gain more efficiency and gain more automation is for better pricing precision. They're looking for growth without having to add headcount.
Right.
They're looking to maximize the use of their most valuable asset they have, which is their people.
Right.
And automation is going to get there. If you don't tell them that, and this isn't a new problem, I did this when I deployed the first FNOL solution and customer-facing internet solution at Liberty Mutual a long time ago with AOL Netscape Navigator today. So I'm really dating things. And 14.4 baud modems I still hear the noise, if you don't tell you the why and what it means to them, they will assume you're going to be eliminating their jobs.
Right.
And even if it's unconscious, there is now this filter in their heads. The shoe's going to drop at any moment now, and now they're distracted.
Right.
And they're trying to do their best, and they're distracted, and they're fearful, and they're trying to figure out, what do I do? Do I make other plans? And nobody's saying anything, and they're not going to ask, are you going to fire me? Because they don't want to hear the answer. But that's what they assume. And so it's really change management, as well as getting the voice of the front line.
Right.
You know, I learned this early on from having really great teams. I can have my opinions on what I think would help us the most, but I'm no longer on the front lines doing the work. Why don't I bring my people together? And I did this when RPA became a thing.
Sure.
And I said, you tell me, what are the top 5 things that you say that you know you need to do? If you don't know why you're doing it, please go check, because maybe you should stop, because there's a lot of inherited things that never get stopped and just keep on going on their own gravitational forces. And he's like, we throw that report out every week.
Right.
Like literally.
Yeah, right.
No, I wish you would have told me.
You don't open it. Oh, I didn't even know I get that. Report.
Yes, I don't even know what it's for. That person retired.
Right.
And so, asking the people, because, I'm like, the things that you do that add value, you have to do it, but you're saying in this day and age, I have no idea why this isn't automated. I got some really surprising things, because I'm not on the front lines doing the work anymore. I'm overseeing and leading the organization. I had a very different kind of agile backlog of things we needed to tackle. Once I got, and it kind of back to the transformation. I think it was transformative because we were really redefining how we were going to leverage our people. And we were going to really rethink about achieving speed and efficiency and dropping the overall kind of total cost of ownership of certain functions that we did and all these things that we were doing. I thought it was transformative, but it didn't sparkle. It sparkled for my people.
Sure.
But it wasn't like, woohoo, jazz hands. It just wasn't. But it was incredibly impactful. Or, things like, the no-code, low-code, and, moving work into the hands of the people that are best do the work. This wasn't about, I got into this debate, this was not about trying to eliminate developers' work or take work away from developers. I'm trying to get you back into the seat of where you're supposed to be, doing the things that the organization needs you to do that my business analyst team has no business doing. I'm trying to create capacity. I'm trying to unblock things. And I think that's incredibly transformative, but nobody may see the magic behind the scenes, but what they'll start seeing is other things are getting done faster.
That makes a
and
lot
better.
of sense. Yeah.
And maybe at less cost.
That makes a ton of sense. You're reminding me of, you talk about reports of a study that just recently came out that I read that talks about the disparity between how executives view technology readiness in their organization versus frontline workers view technology or change readiness. And I think the report cited something like 90% of executives thought that their organization was technically ready for change. And whereas frontline were close to like 50%. And there was this massive disconnect.
And that's super optimistic, I think,
super optimistic. I may have misquoted it, but there was a big chasm between the two. I mean, do you observe that similarly, and B, how do we bring them closer together?
Yeah, I believe it is the case because we're just, everybody execute work. We think at a leadership level, we think we're helping by not distracting, by talking about what's coming until we're ready to like tell you everything, and then we blow your doors off. The other pieces, and I just did a presentation on this last week after doing some research, is we have to change how we think about what we look for when we hire and what's the continuum of professional development. We think about as the skills, the technical skills, technical from handling a claim or being able to underwrite and policy administration. We think about it, we hire for that experience, and yet research shows the number one driver of employee performance, success, and retention is adaptability.
Yeah.
And more so than ever. And here's a little nod that makes me personally happy, sitting in the generation that gets a little, like, hits the ageism thing. The most adaptable generation today is Gen X. Because the continuum, and I know it firsthand from, I walked into the organization that was, we had a brand new mainframe claim system, you know, but everybody else was still paper.
Right.
Those days, auto liability claims was completely paper. And with the paper fleas that went with it, it is a thing, by the way. And we found that he was breaking out of rashes.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
I had no idea. I thought that was kind of myth.
Oh no, it's real. Yeah, exactly. So so it's adaptability, and so when you hire, how do you ask the questions about how people react to change and handle change? Because change is something that not only needs to be expected, it needs to be embraced. And then I'll add on to that. And when you stop changing, you should get nervous.
Yeah,
something's wrong. Because the world is not changing. Insurance exists in a world that ideally we're trying to be ahead of the next emerging risk. Often we're not, and that's okay. But we need to be able to rapidly respond when it hits.
Sure.
And again, sadly, 9/11 is a classic example as the whole industry went, exposure management, concentration of risk.
Sure.
Oh, shoot.
Yep.
People weren't managing their portfolios based on that, and they suddenly realized, in hindsight, everybody needed to be to not have the companies go under. And so I think it's that piece. And then again, when change is coming, bringing end to end from frontline all the way through, everybody, you need to be transparent. And if in fact the end goal is that there's going to be some reduction in headcount, bad news doesn't age well.
Yeah.
And I assure you, under most circumstances, in most day-to-day circumstances, and this is taking aside what's happened with the rating issues, but when you're doing change, the magnitude of the change that people are imagining is far worse. Insurance people are skeptics by nature.
Sure, yeah.
We're looking for stuff to go bad and get ahead of it. So we don't think optimistically, we think cynically. And so the truth is generally going to be still not popular if it is reduction, but it might be. The sooner people know, that's their opportunity to say, where else in the enterprise could I redeploy myself into?
Yep.
So I think, and so that's that piece of why they think about it, because they know that people are really smart and highly resilient in the chair they're in, but they're not talking to them about the broader landscape. Everybody's heads down doing their job, and there isn't that in hindsight, I wish I'd spent an hour or two a week in LinkedIn, not looking for a job, but staying informed on what my industry was talking about. Things that may not have, that I wasn't hearing about in my specific role, but was going to eventually hit my business unit.
Sure.
And I could have been ahead of it, and I might have made better decisions to prepare my organization if I saw, a competitor's dealing with this challenge.
Yeah.
I'm not hearing about that. Maybe we are, and it hasn't burst yet.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
This has been awesome, Meredith. Let me close out with this question, because we're at Insurtech Harvard Symposium, emphasis on Insurtech. And we're talking about AI all day, right? There's a ton of AI vendors in this room next to us.
Yep.
How are you advising your clients to think about AI strategically?
Yep. I think it's a rethinking of strategic is not about scale in terms of your partnerships.
Okay.
Because it's now about, and this is very contrary to, understandably carriers or MGAs, they'd like to have fewer vendors under contract, to have more leverage on pricing, et cetera. I get it. Totally makes sense, except for the fact of, do you not want the best of breed solution for every particular need that you have? It may be the similar use case, but a different line of business, for example.
Got it.
Or a similar process, but it's an underwriting as opposed to
Right.
claims. If you don't want to settle for anything less than the best, then, and the chances of it being your number one and number two priorities to be those two parallel use cases is highly unlikely.
Yeah, right.
So you have to be comfortable with a much more iterative, incremental approach to crawl, walk, run through it, learn from it. But when it becomes the number one priority, say you've addressed it in commercial lines and now you need to look at it in personal lines, you want to learn from commercial lines. By the way, everybody's a snowflake except they're not.
Right.
I was one until I realized I wasn't. There needs to be much more internal cross-business unit sharing of lessons learned.
Right.
Because that solution, in fact, may be incredibly viable, but the experiences alone are incredibly reusable when you go to market, but you're going to market and solution providers need to be problem oriented. Don't lead with the who you are and what you do.
Yeah.
Lead with the compelling problem, the value of solving it, and then what would it take to get there? And then carriers you need, or MGAs, whomever you need to know, it's not the symptom, it's the root cause of your problem. And you need to know up front, what's the measurable value if you fix it? Because otherwise you could overspend.
That makes a lot of sense.
Overinvest.
That makes a lot of sense. I lied. One last question, because you said something that was kind of interesting. What I heard you say about best in breed made me think about something. As a former CIO, I think about a lot of the technical debt that I've had to deal with was as a result of us trying to shoehorn solutions where they didn't fit. So what I heard you, look, if it fits, it fits. That's cool. Use it, right? But if you're going after this approach and you have this ability now to use all of this cheaper democratized technology, it is okay to have two screwdrivers if they're different sizes and one is more appropriate for this screw versus the other. Right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. Fair enough. So how do we go at that and balance that without having basically everything under the sun and just going on a buying spree and then having support nightmares? So where's that balance?
And that's a very fair point. So you do still want to look at when you found, here's our next priority, and this is a discrete problem that we need to solve. The first moment is, and it's not, don't wait till procurement tells you. We have 5 others of these. It needs to shift all the way back left to the front of the organization of, there needs to be this concept of, we come together across business units because we're not competitors with each other. We're the same family. And we need to be continually sharing what we're looking at, because somebody might say, oh, I don't need that yet, but I think I may want to. So can I kind of audit you as you go? Can I follow where you're going?
I love that.
And learn from you, and vice versa, and create this community, not steering committees, not governance, conversations, relationships. Keep it easy, keep it simple, but so they can learn from each other, because otherwise today, the poor procurement people are the eye of the darn needle, the unloved, misunderstood, undervalued eye of the needle who says, no.
Right.
And now I'm in love with them and I want them. And this is the first time I'm hearing that there's 4 other of these, and now I have to go back, and now I feel like I'm settling.
That's right.
Because I didn't understand up front. A wise person, if I knew we already had 4 of these, I'd be like, I'm not going to come in and suggest 5 unless I can convince myself.
You got it.
That there's a measurable reason to not, to open up the toolbox and add another screwdriver.
Love it. Meredith, thank you so much for taking the time.
Appreciate
Hope you have a great rest of your conference. Safe travels home, and I look forward to meeting with you again.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it.
Thank you for joining this episode of 5 Minutes. If you've enjoyed our discussion, we'd love for you to share it with anyone else you think might find it interesting. Also, please subscribe on whatever podcast platform you're listening on, and hit that bell to stay on top of the game with our practical 5-minute episodes. We look forward to seeing you again next week.